Hey friends, welcome to Dennis Insider. Today we're doing Pterygopalatine fossa. So the topic is this odd slab type of pyramid. We call it Pterygopalatine fossa. It has this ganglion in it, Pterygopalatine ganglion, which gets some kind of branches from the maxillary nerve. So that's all we're going to talk about. So first we'll do the bones of the Pterygopalatine fossa, and then we can do the structures inside of the fossa. Then we can do the nerves that pass, basically, and then the ganglion, Pterygopalatine ganglion. That is kind of like a relay station to a lot of things. And finally, just talk about the maxillary V2 nerve, which is really important to dentists. Um, so let's jump into the pterygopalatine fossa. Here we can see it's this triangle that we see right here, or sorry, inverted pyramid that we see here, and it's fitting in between our basically the visceral cranium and the neurocranium. Let's talk about the boundaries that make this up. And we'll talk about the location of where this fossa is. This fossa is an empty space, and I will just talk about the walls that make up, and they kind of overlap, and you'll see. So anteriorly to this fossa is maxilla, and the interior wall is also the maxilla. Um, Posterior, we have the pterygoid processes sphenoid bone, the middle cranial fossa, and the posterior wall is the pterygoid processes sphenoid bone, right? Kind of same shape. Then we go medially. Medially, we have the nasal cavity. The medial wall is a perpendicular plate of the palatine bone. Laterally, we have the infratemporal fossa. The lateral bone is a pterygomaxillary fissure. Superior, apex of the orbit, roof is a sphenoid bone, both the greater wing and the body. And then basically that's about it. Now let's talk about here. We can see a picture. So the roof is a greater wing of the sphenoid bone. Anteriorly, we have the maxilla. Um, Inside, posterior, medially, we should have the perpendicular plate of the palatine bone. We also have the pterygoid plates, and then the floor is a horizontal plate of the palatine bone. So this should be kind of like a pyramid, right, in the space. Okay, let's go back and see what is in that area. So anteriorly, we have the inferior orbital fissure, and it's an exit. Um, and you can see that here, and that's where we will have our V2 and some arteries, nerves will come enter here, inferior orbital fissure. Here we have the infraorbital artery and infraorbital nerve, and that will give us our MSA, ESA. Then we have in the pterygopalatine fossa, we have some openings. We have the foramen rotundum or V2, we have the pterygoid canal, and we have the pharyngeal canal. So here we can see V2, foramen rotundum. Here we can see pterygoid canal that gives us the pterygoid. The nerve of the pterygoid canal goes through, so that is in the back. So we should have an opening for we have the first opening here in blue, we have the second opening here in orange, and then we should have a third opening here in purple, and that is the pharyngeal canal. So they kind of go from top to bottom, or also medial to lateral. The most medial, as you can see, is right here, the foramen rotundum, and then it will go inside the pterygoid canal, and then more deeper is the pharyngeal canal. We have sphenopalatine artery foramen that is on the palatine side. We have the pterygomaxillary fissure that is basically a 3D connect door through which your PSA artery and nerve comes out. Right, and then we have on the bottom greater and lesser palatine canal, or greater palatine canal, which will give you greater and lesser palatine foramen, where the greater lesser the nerves come out. So here we can see in the middle we have the pterygoid ganglion, and then it gives you the two branches, greater and lesser palatine. Next we talk about the branches of the maxillary nerve. So the maxillary nerve here is it's a V2, gives you meningeal, pterygopalatine, zygomatic, and infratemporal. And let's talk about what each one does. So first we have the meningeal. Meningeal provides innervation to the dura mater, the middle cranial fossa. Then we have the pterygopalatine. We saw that it was kind of this ball that kind of hangs down from the maxillary V2. And in that one, we have greater palatine that went down to the hard palate. We have lesser palatine that went to the soft palate. We have the pharyngeal that goes to the nasal. We have posterior nasal that provides to the conchas. We have nasopalatine that gives you to the hard palate. And all of these distribute to the mucosa of the posterior inferior part of the nasal cavity. And then we go to the maxillary sinus region.